Welcome back. We live? Good?
Yeah.
All right, welcome back to another Meet Kevin show or podcast. Welcome, everyone. So, wow, we have a lot to talk about, and there's a debate coming up within the next hour here, which we'll be covering later, so make sure to come for that. But we got to cover Tesla, Cruise, Chevy Cruise, my gosh, what a disaster. Earnings, Uber, Rivian, Lucid, Robinhood. We'll talk about this. Talk about what's going on. Private equity, Trump, Israel. Let's get right into it. So first, did you hear that Chevy Cruise, the company that was supposed to be bringing us autonomous cars, not Tesla, but Chevy Cruise was supposed to bring us autonomous cars, according to the New York Times, had, quote, 1.5 workers per vehicle helping operate the fleet. So that way, in effect, the company intervened to assist company vehicles every 2.5 to 5 miles. In other words, the fully autonomous cars that Chevy Cruise was bringing us were actually less autonomous than an Uber. Mike, it's pretty embarrassing.
That hurts.
You were reading some Morgan Stanley news today also. What did Morgan Stanley have to say? Because I heard they're being weenie babies.
Oh, on Tesla, they've revised their price target a little bit here. Still, overall, I would say they're pretty bullish, maybe just slightly less bullish than they were in the past. We're looking at a price target now of 380, but they did give a bear case of 120 as well as a bull case of 550, and I'll go over all of that.
180 is their bear case?
120.
So, 120. Oh, okay. So we still have a little bit of way to go then to their bear. So, okay.
Well, still, their $380 price target, that does suggest like a 75% upside.
Yeah, and you know what's fascinating about these price targets is I swear these people, they are like the little magnet that like glitches after, like, you know those tables when you're a child and then you have to like move the toy on top with the magnet below? Like the stock price moves up and the toy like glitches afterwards. That's the price target catching up. And then you move the toy back and the magnet back and the toy glitches back. That's Wall Street price targets for you.
If the stock's going up, we've revised and we're very bullish, and as soon as it starts going up, we've revised, now we're bearish.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's because like they'll look like clowns if their price targets are too far removed from the actual prices. So like if they actually think the stock's going to go to 1,000, they can't be that bullish because then you're going to look like a clown. And if your price target was 1,000 when the stock was 900, now the stock's 500, you have to revise your price target down to 600. So you can say, well, I mean, we did lower our price target. It's bullshit, man. It's so ridiculous. But we do know that they are bullish on the company overall. They did move. What they did is they just reallocated some of their funding to Block, which I have to say, pretty low. I mean, you put that stock next to like Disney and Robinhood, and the charts start looking pretty similar. It's low. Not only that, but then you've got a little bit of money going into Google, which I still sort of like throw up my hands up in the air or whatever you want to say about Google, because I really find once, we were talking about this earlier, once people start using GPT, you just don't Google anymore. I can't remember the last time I've really actually Googled to learn something, short of like going directly through resources, which would be like an earnings call or earnings report. But if I just have a question, I want to get started, it's either GPT or I'm going to a primary source. Like if I need to look up a FINRA rule, SEC or FINRA rule or whatever, I just go to the FINRA manual. Or I ask GPT, like, in which rule would this be? And then I go find the text. I'm not even Googling anymore. So I do think that eventually, I still hold this, we're going to start seeing Google search volumes decline substantially as people adopt. Does Franny use GPT?
I don't think she does, actually.
Yeah, you got to get her into GPT.
Yeah, because you got Lauren into it and it's been working.
She will not stop using it. Everything now is just GPT.
It wasn't until this morning. So ChatGPT did go down for a while today, and it wasn't until this morning.
I know. What is that?
I realized how much I'm actually depending on it. Like I had to Google stuff for research today, and I was like, dude, this is so slow. Like I feel like my information intake dropped like 80%. It was crazy.
It like slows down every bit of
productivity.
Freddie
just texted me in all caps and said, "I use it. I do."
Yes. Yeah. It's amazing. And the problem with it, well, it's not really a problem, but it's like what makes it so. What sinks the hook so deep, and where it becomes a problem in the longer term for companies like Google, is what it is. It's kind of like they made a virus. And they called it like Ovid or something, and it's just GPT. It's Jovid. There you go. And it's slowly spreading now. But the more people use it, the faster it spreads. And I think we're in like December 2019 for COVID, except now for Ovid, like the GPT day or whatever you want to. It's just an analogy to basically say, as it grows further, I think it'll just continue to grow faster and faster and faster, especially once they move 4.0 to the freemium, which they will, because they just came out with GPT Turbo, which is supposed to be even better. It's funny, they came out with GPT Turbo like 2 days after Elon Musk announces, we have the equivalent of GPT 3.0 or 3.5. They're like, oh yeah, here's Turbo 4.0. You want us to keep going? Elon will come out with 3.5. They'll come out, here's GPT 5.
How do you pronounce the XAI one?
I haven't figured it. I've tried pronouncing it because Elon put it on as GRO with the line above it and then K, which is a long O, so it should be like Grook, like Groot. I am Groot.
That's a U, right? It should be Grok.
Grok? Is it Grok?
Well, I think that's how I read Elon saying it is
you're
Grok.
Right. Grok.
But I think he's wrong.
Oh, well.
I know it's his product, but I think it's Grok. It's a term that's existed from science fiction.
Oh, that makes sense.
And it's kind of like the GIF versus GIF thing, which is probably like the smallest hill I'll die on, is that it's pronounced GIF. I know the dude calls it GIF, but he was a programmer, not a linguist. Anyway.
That's awesome.
Morgan Stanley.
Yeah.
So we've got Adam Jones from Morgan Stanley. He's the one who set this price target. And he did mention that Tesla might have had their iPhone moment, but they haven't had their App Store moment yet. And that's not to say like the literal App Store that we're awaiting for the Tesla. It's just that moment of we got a good product and now we expanded on it so much that it really got everyone to start using it. They haven't had that yet.
Yeah. I believe that. Like what we covered, a week or so ago on Tesla was the. I can't remember who it was, but one of the analysts we were looking at, it was a Barron or something like that. Anyway, he likens Tesla to being the Intel Pentium inside, or we were having that discussion.
Barron,
That's right. Instead of Intel inside, it's Tesla inside. I love that analogy, and it makes me so bullish on Tesla. Obviously, the stock's going to have a hard time when it's an 8-9% interest rate for a car. But that's okay. Thank you. That's the way I look at it. I'm like, thank you. I get more opportunities to buy. So anyway, okay. So that's Morgan Stanley's reallocation. Square, I would probably be more interested in Google. I feel like Google's already had its run because of artificial intelligence and its hopium for it. Palantir, in my opinion, is a much better deal for software artificial intelligence than Google, in my opinion. But don't get me wrong, we use Google every single day in terms of like its cloud infrastructure, not the search engine. Problem for Google is they make like half their revenue from search, and another 7 or 10% from Google or from YouTube rather. So a fraction is coming from their cloud services, which are good products. Okay, so there was also some drama about the Cybertruck. You had some opinions on this because a lot of people are making fun of Tesla because there's like, what is it, the CFO? Or no, the chief designer. Or the chief designer went to a car show or whatever, and people like, oh, panel gaps, and people are bitching about the Tesla. What was your opinion on this?
Yeah, there's definitely panel gaps. From the rear of the truck, it was like the right light was a little bit higher up than it should have been. But from what I looked into, there's this whole rabbit hole. It's based on a Reddit post of this guy who went super detective mode and found, based on trying to find pictures of the license plate and the VIN numbers and all that, matched it up to a Cybertruck that has existed since before that pixelated finish one came out. Basically, this is one of the first release candidate Cybertrucks that they wrapped in a satin black color. And it's not a new truck. That's one of the oldest ones.
Okay, so this is probably like the Gen 1 or whatever, and people are going nuts on Twitter about how low or crappy the build quality is. Meanwhile, you do have pictures of it?
I'll pull some up.
Yeah, see if you have some pictures of it. So, but that doesn't surprise me. It's very common that actually, I'm going to pull up what Tran showed us as well about Twitter, now that we're on the topic of Twitter. But I'll pull that up. The... Twitter drives me nuts because you don't always get that context, but we don't even know what to ask. And that's the problem. When we're on Twitter, we look at what's on Twitter and we're like, oh my gosh, that panel gap, that looks like a problem. This is a big deal. And then all of a sudden we get the reality of like, oh, well, that's actually the 2-year-old version. And that was just the Gen 1 they slapped together to see if the car even has any remote capabilities in real function. Is that the picture of what it actually?
So I've got a couple of pictures here. This is one from the front. This is from the same event. This was a Malibu car show.
Okay.
And so I think it actually looks really cool in black.
It looks so good. That should be the default color.
It looks menacing, man.
Yeah.
But so what people are freaking out about is this back end. You see the little taillight, how it's elevated compared to the trunk over here, and the same on the other side.
Yeah.
So that's the panel gap that everyone's super worried about, and they're throwing it under the bus for this.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a nothing burger.
Yeah. And I mean, I think when you get closer to it, it's even a little larger. But which it's like you don't want to buy it that way. But again, if it's a prototype vehicle, like okay, all right, congratulations, you made fun of a prototype vehicle.
These are massive cars too. So there was a potential leak that came out today that talked about the dimensions of the Cybertruck, and so the overall length of this thing is 18.6 feet, right? But the width, I think, is where it's really like overwhelming. If you've seen pictures of it in the charging stalls, it takes up like the entire space of the charging stall. Wow. They're very, very big. So the inside is really spacious, and that's a good thing. But the overall width, not counting the mirrors, is 79.9 inches, which is a very specific number because in the U.S., if a truck is 80 inches wide or wider, you have to have those little amber marker lights on the front and then the little red marker lights in the back.
No, because it's like wide load or something. Oh,
so if you see like the Ford Raptors or even semi-trucks, they have those little amber lights on the hood. This is 79.9, so you don't need those lights. And I think that's the reason for that width.
That makes a lot of sense. That's I do find that very interesting, though. That finally we have what seems like some pictures of these cars more regularly coming out, because it does feel like okay, now we're actually getting closer to the Cybertruck really coming in. Then we can all see it in person, like new release like not release candidates, but actual. Here's the production car. Let's get the reviews. Let's get hands-on with some of these. Here, I'll text you. I found a link of the closer-up panel gap. And it's interesting to see. I mean, if that was the finished product, when you see the light a little closer, it's like, okay, it's the back gate, it's the where you open up the trunk, so to speak, of the pickup truck. But it does. It looks a little more dramatic than when it's up close. There you throw that up there, Christian. Yeah,
so this seems to be the hood on this one because this is the front windshield wiper. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is the thing everyone's complaining about, which I get it. It doesn't look great, but like when you put it in a context that it's one of the oldest Cybertrucks out there, and it's a pre-release candidate.
Yeah,
even.
that's not a big deal. And then
the fenders thing, same thing.
And this is like honestly, I like it even with the gaps. Like, can I get the one with the gaps? It's like I don't care.
Someone mentioned it's a Tesla trademark, the panel gaps.
Honestly, they're not wrong. Like at this point, that is just so common. Okay, so that's Tesla on Cybertruck. We hit Tesla on Morgan Stanley, or Morgan Stanley hit Tesla. All these people who are turning into Tesla bears because of interest rates. I'm just gonna be crystal clear, freaking morons. Like to sell Tesla stock because it's hard to sell Teslas when interest rates are 5.5%. What are you smoking? Like you are betting against the wrong company to bet against. It's fine with me though. I mean, I don't, like I said, I don't care. I take extra money and build position in it. I highly. There's a reason why. In the ETF I manage, we was like a 25% allocation to this thing. There's a reason why. It's because I think that could be worth it could, and there's no guarantee of this obviously, but I think there's a chance it could be worth as much as the other 75%. And then you use the ETF structure to reallocate in a tax efficient manner if that were to play out like that. So anyway, that's theorizing.
And so people give Tesla crap for this, for dropping prices and all that, but it's actually been hitting other EV makers just as hard, if not harder.
Yeah.
While I cover this, if Christian, you could throw this on the screen. This is an updated list of the cars that have adapted the North American charging standard, and Lucid is the newest one to join the team. Just the other day, they announced that they were joining.
Really?
Elon Musk on X said that must have been a hard pill for them to swallow.
Oh, yeah.
So
Lucid.
Everyone's been moving to this standard.
One of the things about my father-in-law who had the Lucid was complaining about was that he could only use the Electrify America stations. And he was pissed because every time he would go, he said half of the machines didn't work. And then when they did work, they were slow, like trash. So, it's I don't know. I'm a big fan here. Anyway, okay, so that's Tesla. What's with this EVs passing 20% of car sales in? California.
Yeah, so this is for California. 21.5% of all new cars in California in the first 9 months of this year have been EVs. So this is the first time, obviously, in history that over 20% of the cars in the market are EVs. Granted, this is obviously only for California, but you compare this to last year, we had 16.4% of all new sales being EVs. So this is a really, really big, moment for them. And even though Tesla is still the kind of the leader in the EV market.
Oh, poopies. I just spilled my coffee.
A little bit of a spill.
I forgot that was there. Christian, would you mind getting a napkin for me?
Leave the camera on me.
Yeah, there you go.
So even though they're the dominant player, like in the segment, their overall, like their slice of the pie has been shrinking, right? But the pie itself has been getting bigger and bigger.
Substantially. Yeah, this is like Teflon. Actually, you know what? You're going to have to switch angles just to show my Teflon over here. That's what we should do is we should just always have, it's literally not soaking into it. It's great.
I was just saying we need some really nice desks, but never mind.
We were talking about that. Like, oh yeah, maybe a nice custom desk or something. Here's why we don't have nice things. So, you can't, if you buy a fancy car, getting door dings and you're always worried about somebody scratching it or spilling something in your car. Well, if you just buy a used car, who cares? Your stress level actually goes down.
True. Or you just get a Cybertruck, then no one can door ding you.
You just shoot arrows at it. Yeah. I love that. I want to buy the one with Joe Rogan's arrow hole in it.
That's probably going to be more valuable than the average Cybertruck.
Yeah. For sure.
So Tesla sales, 71.8% was the number they were looking at last year compared to all other EVs in the country, but now it's down to 62.9%. But again, the slice of the pie is growing up because we're seeing over 20% of all new cars are EVs.
And that will become 100%. I know there are a lot of people who are, well, I'm never going to get an electric car. You will.
If you count hybrids as EVs, which we seem to be doing, the plug-in hybrids, I guess, count as EVs. In that sense, Toyota is actually beating Tesla by a little bit.
So is BYD in China, but I mean, who cares?
Right, because those are mostly hybrids.
Yeah, Tesla outsells them in pure EVs.
And even Texas, they recently announced a $2,500 EV rebate, which they've been historically pretty hostile to Tesla.
Well, I think I'm not sure about this, but it wouldn't surprise me that that's Biden admin money. So the Biden administration, look, all right, we'll help you with XYZ for Austin or San Antonio or whatever, but you need to offer an EV tax credit, and here we'll fund it through the Department of Transportation or whatever. And I think that's how presidents actually lead action within the state is they get Congress to pass these massive bills. They pass the Inflation Reduction Act, which was the $400 million printing machine for energy tax credits, which is now being interpreted as, based on Goldman Sachs' estimates, costing about $1.2 trillion, which basically means every $1 Congress authorized, the government's spending $3. And the way they do that is with the president and Janet Yellen going, well, I could interpret it like this. and then they send more money, It's crazy. The game is rigged. But, if you know what the rules of the game are, you got to play the rules of the game, I guess. It's called politics.
And I mentioned that other EVs are getting hit just as hard. Yeah. Some EV makers, this is, I saw news on Mercedes reducing their prices, but the ones I looked at were Hyundai and Ford. They're offering $7,500 off on some of their EVs. And this is in addition to the $7,500 tax creddet.
Yeah.
They are desperate to sell these cars. They can't sell them right now.
And that's shocking because, everybody was blaming Tesla for reducing prices. Meanwhile, all those price cuts are happening at the dealerships, and now you're starting to see on the national level some of these price cuts come through for the other dealer-focused sales. So in simple terms, yes, prices are coming down. And Tesla still has very good margins, the best margins that exist in electric vehicles. So it's amazing. Okay, Rivian reported.
Yeah, Rivian reported yesterday. So did Lucid. We'll cover both. Rivian beat, so on EPS, it was minus 1.19 versus the expected minus $1.32. They beat revenue with 1.34 billion versus the 1.31 billion. Which that was a little bit smaller, but they revised their yearly guidance like everyone's been doing, but they revised it up. So this is pretty bullish for Rivian. They originally said they were expecting to produce 52,000. Now they're expecting to produce 54,000 by end of year. And it was a much better earnings call, to put it simply, much better than what Lucid ended up reporting.
Oh, yeah. Well, I want to hear that in a moment. But just for reference, we have a gross profit here of negative $1.4 billion. That means we spent $4.5 billion to bring in about 3.1. That's much narrower than it was last time. It's about a third less of a loss, and that's because they're producing many more vehicles. I mean, they're bringing in 3 times as much revenue as they did in the this is the 9-month figure, in the 9 months ending September 30th compared to the 9 months ended 2022 September 30th, where they only brought in about $995 million. Now, their research and development has actually gone down, and so is their SG&A. So they're cutting their OPEX to become more efficient on OPEX, while at the same time bringing in 3 times the revenue in this interest rate environment. It's not bad. You know, when I covered their Q2 earnings report, I was looking at this going, they're getting better. And I believe that now as well. They're actually trending towards profitability. It'll still take them probably a couple years to get there. And they've got the capital to do it for now. They've got about $8 billion in cash. They've got bills to pay of about $2 billion. This is ignoring their long-term debt of about 2.7, gives them about $6 billion of cash. And right now they've got an operating cash flow, or should I say cash loss, of about 3.6 for a 9-month period. 3.6, 3.7. That gives them about 18 months. So it gives them about a year and a half of cash.
Yeah, they're losing maybe like $30,000-ish per vehicle right now. Unlike Lucid, which I think is losing 6 figures still.
Yeah. It used to be that with Rivian. Rivian used to lose 6 figures. So for them to go to a 2-figure loss per car is actually starting to get better than Ford. So not bad. I mean, good for Rivian here. Now, again, risk factor. As I said, a year ago, they're going to have to raise money. And then, of course, we raised money, which is fine. Like, you're going to expect them to do that. They will probably have to raise money again. But just because a company has to raise money doesn't mean the stock is going to net perform worse. It's just something to be aware of that, probably within about the next 18 months, you're going to have to raise some money again.
Let me cover Lucid real quick, and let's move on to some Trump stuff.
Yes.
So Lucid also reported yesterday, they also revised their yearly guidance, but they went the opposite direction. So instead of the 10K expected vehicles, they're doing between 8 and 8.5K as their revised estimate.
Wow.
Their revenue missed for the year was somewhere between 15 and 20%.
Wow.
They did beat earnings a little bit. They only lost $624 million versus the $701 million that they were expected. So they beat on earnings, but they missed revenues, 137.8 versus 177.5 expected. Pretty bad. You want to cover Robinhood too?
I guess go ahead with Robinhood.
Let's do the abridged one of the Robinhood real quick. That stock yesterday dropped 14.29%. So just really, really bad. Trading activity was pretty much muted this last quarter. There was nothing happening on Robinhood.
People are out of money.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like if you don't have money anymore, it's like, I'd like to buy the dip, but I spent all of 2022 buying the dip and there's no money left, right? So if you're in that situation, it's like, well, okay, how often are you really going to log into Robinhood? Are you going to open it up every day to feel bad because the numbers are going down? No. So it's depressing. So then you just don't look. You just live your life.
Just pay off the margin as it comes, as you
the
get
phone
called.
rings.
Yeah. But basically, their GAAP EPS loss was 9 cents, which is really not good because last quarter they were profitable.
Wow. Yeah. I think a lot of this is likely we were looking at this a little bit. Their total assets under custody went up like 32%, but year over year. But the NASDAQ year over year is up 37%. So they basically haven't grown assets at all. Their monthly active users are down. And when you look at it that way, it's like, okay, sure, you're growing your assets because of market movements and you're growing your revenues because of high interest rates, but neither of those are sustainable user growth. What people were so excited about with Robinhood was that everybody was going to be using Robinhood all the time. And that just hit a wall when rates went up. So we got another rates victim here. The question is, how long is it going to take for people to want to switch on I want to throw every dollar I have back in the stock market like what we had in 21? That's going to be a while. I don't know that we're going to be back to that very, very soon, but hopefully we continue to trend up here. As far as just quickly wrapping on Lucid here, and then let's hit some Trump stuff. Wrapping on Lucid, the net cash from operating activity is in the 3 months was negative 500 mil, negative 2 bill on the 9 month. If I look at their cash available, so they're burning $500 million per quarter. If I go to their cash available, we've got about $4.3 billion of cash and short-term investments. So 4.3-ish available, burning 4, that gives us about 8 quarters. But we also have our payables here, which actually aren't that, there's about $1 billion here. Okay, we got about $1 billion of payables. Let's ignore the long term for a moment. Just quick asset test math. We've got about 3.3 divided by half. That's going to put us, that brings us to 6.6 quarters. So they're also going to have to raise in about 1.5 years. It's just like Rivian. Both of them run out of money within about 1.5 years. But Rivian is way further ahead.
They're poised way better.
Way better positioning. I would invest in Rivian all day long before I would touch Lucid, and I am not investing in Rivian. That's just mine. So
fair.
Anyway, okay.
Trump.
Yes, Trump. Ivanka, I want to hear about this.
Yeah, so Trump's testimony was on Monday. Ivanka's was today. Trump, when he was testifying, he received multiple warnings from the judge for veering off topic, in Trump nature. But overall, the abridged version of what happened there is he defended the way his organization was valuing things, and that's it. And before we move on to Ivanka, I want to show you after he testified, he tweeted he truthed a couple of things.
Yes.
On Truth Social. This first one that I have on my screen is the longest one. He says, let me zoom in. I am worth billions of dollars more than what is on my financial statements. They are very conservative, therefore no fraud. And the corrupt and racist New York State Attorney General Letitia Peekaboo James, working in close coordination with the Trump-hating radical left judge and the Biden White House, refuses to drop the no jury allowed case that was brought using a statute never used for this before. In fact, no such lawsuit has ever been brought by the Attorney General's office. It's a mockery of our judicial and legal system. Something must be done to stop the fascists, MAGA. And then in the same minute, he also tweeted election interference.
Yeah. What's really amazing is Donald Trump is hitting such a sore time in the economy that it is actually a blessing he was not reelected. Because it increases his chances of being reelected now.
I agree.
If you're Trump, you have got to be sitting on the side right now going, thank God I didn't have to deal with mopping up all the inflation. Because as Jerome Powell said, people are pissed at inflation. They're pissed off at high prices. They're pissed off at high credit card rates, groceries, restaurants. Everybody wants to tip 30% for, every terminal you go to now because everybody's trying to get another dollar and there aren't enough dollars to go around. It's a painful time. And so Donald Trump missed the pain. Whoever wins it takes office in January of 2025 is walking into a probably better economy than we're in today. Hopefully. We could be in a recession. It could be worse. But the way things are trending, it feels like inflation rates should be lower by then. Maybe we're talking rate cuts. Think about that. If we don't get rate cuts until the election or right before the election, the next person who's president, which could be a Biden reelection, they get the benefit of the loosening cycle. Mm-hmm. Biden took the entire brunt of the tightening cycle. That sucks. That if you could write the movie script and you're Donald Trump, it would be, I'll take office for 4 years, go out with a bang, let somebody else clean up whatever disasters happen, and then have no disasters in my next 4 years. And what's really incredible is The Economist ran a piece, and they're like, and The Economist, just keep in mind, they are a liberal news media organization, so keep that in mind. We want to be as neutral as possible.
They're not CNN levels, but they definitely lean to the left.
They lean left. That's a good way to put it. They're the business equivalent of like a CNN almost. But I really like them. They have good insight, and even though I don't agree with all their politics, I think they're a great publication. But they had a big headline in their magazine, and they said, as terrifying as it is, Trump might be our next president.
Yep. Even CNN, who is more left, they were coming out.
They are the left.
They are the left.
Yeah. They were saying what?
They were saying that Trump's going to win, at least by every poll right now.
If the election were held today, Trump would be the president again.
100%.
Yeah.
They covered over specific things, too. So they were talking about who would do a better job handling the economy. 59% Trump, 37% Biden. Immigration, 53% Trump, 41% Biden. Mm-hmm. Israel-Palestine, 51% Trump, 39% Biden. The last one is 7 in 10 voters, and this includes the majority of Democrats that were pulled here, but 7 in 10 voters thought that Biden was too old to be an effective president. He's about to turn, 81?
Yeah. I believe that. What about Ivanka?
Ivanka. So she testified today. So to clarify too, so she was a witness, not a defendant. She's not in this trial because of a statute of limitations. So she's not a defendant there. A lot of people.
She's also not running for president.
She's also not running for president. She's been distancing herself in general. A lot of people have been reporting that, noticing she's been distancing herself from the family. She used to have the same lawyer as the other Trump sons, but she actually ended up getting her own personal lawyer. Wow. I think as of March of this year. And so she got Moskowitz, the guy who he was the attorney for the estate of Jeffrey Epstein.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So what is she? I know the Trump defense begins on Monday, and they grilled Ivanka, who's been distancing herself. One thing that I thought was really interesting that came out of it, and maybe you'll find it interesting too if I'm not stealing your thunder, but they hinted at what they were going to release regarding the valuations of these Trump properties and the Trump deals. They talked about this release of emails that Deutsche Bank, which did the financing for Trump, was, quote, happy to have the Trump organization as a client. And that's really a game changer, in my opinion. If you can show, look, we did deals with you, our loans were great, you didn't default, if you have that as evidence, and here are emails, the bank loved us, we paid our bills, we had a great business relationship, what's the problem? It politically doesn't look good for the prosecution, because from the public, we look and we go, well, it sounds like everything's okay. Now, the flip side perspective is it okay to lie on an application, let's say, then get the loan, do a good job on the loan, and then you come to find out that it was a lie? It would kind of like be, if that's the case, it would kind of like be somebody applying for a job saying, hey, I'm going to be the best, cook ever. I went to Harvard's cooking school. And it turns out they never actually went to Harvard's cooking school. I don't even know if they have a Harvard cooking school, right? Probably not. But the point is, I went to the Harvard Culinary School, and then we find out that's made up, but they're the best cook ever. Do you fire them because they lied, or are you like, well, I got the best cook ever, or I got a client that paid the bills? And is that something you sue over? Like, usually you would only see a lawsuit if there was a damage. So, yeah, what do you think? What am I missing here?
That's exactly what Trump's whole defense is like, look, there's no victims, therefore no fraud. Like, right. Sure, maybe we skewed the numbers a little bit, which he denies that too. Yeah. But the fact is, there's no victim. The thing though is, if you're applying for that job and you're lying on your resume and you say XYZ, I did these things, and you never did, and you still end up being the best, the best candidate. The problem is you took that from somebody else, right? That's kind of where the issue is.
That is true. That's a very good point, and that's the angle the prosecution is going with. Is that, well, like the post office in Washington that was purchased by Trump was bought because they thought Trump had a bigger balance sheet than maybe he did, or maybe he did actually have that balance sheet. Whatever. That's all being debated right now. And so, yeah, if you lie and then you steal that opportunity from somebody else, then the true victim is the person who lost the deal. Well, then should that person be the one that's suing?
That's a good question.
And so on whom is the burden to sue? The attorney general for lying on the application when there are no damages, or the person who lost the deal and lost the opportunity? But then how do you actually go through a lawsuit on woulda, coulda, shoulda?
Yeah, who lost the opportunity? Yeah, there's no way of proving that.
Well, it's the same thing. Like, people buy a house and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna live in the house, and then they don't. They rent it out. So they get a homeowner occupied loan. They get 5% down or whatever. Then they're defrauding the bank, right? But does the bank care if you're making the payment? No.
Well, Deutsche Bank for sure doesn't.
Deutsche Bank for sure doesn't. Yeah, but no. I mean, technically they don't, because why would you go rock the boat when they're making their payments? You don't. So but then the problem is, at what point does that create a moral problem where now it encourages and incentivizes everyone to lie, and then you just end up with more Sam Bankman-Frieds? So it's a problem. I guess we'll find out how it all plays. But I do think that defense will be very interesting, and it came up during the Trump or the Ivanka testimony, because I don't think they were able to get much out of Ivanka. She seemed pretty distancing. What did you find?
Yeah, she was described as polite and cooperative during her testimony. Now, towards the end, she started to more and more doing the "I don't recall" answer to a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But the fact is, she was perfectly cordial. she just presented herself very, very differently than the way the Trump defense has been so far. There was no challenging things. There was no getting angry or anything like that. And she kept reiterating that she was not privy to any of Trump's personal financial statements, so she doesn't know and she doesn't recall. And that was basically her testimony.
I think she's really smart. I think that is the best way to play this, because if you're just trying to raise your kids and just disappear, you don't want to be part of the White House, you just want to distance yourself, you want to move on, you want to have a happy family or whatever it is you're doing, you just do exactly what she said. Act professional, smile, answer the questions, go home. Smart. That's the best way you could have done it, because if she said one thing bad about her dad, he'd make her life miserable somehow. I'm convinced of that. And she didn't. So now she's in the news for a day or two, and then nobody hears about her again.
Yep.
Good for her.
Yep.
I mean, like, I think she wants to be over it. Let's like close the chapter and just move on.
100%. Yeah. Okay, let's cover a little bit of Israel, and then we can wrap up for the day.
Yeah, because we have the debate coming up. So maybe let's hit Israel. Let's go.
Let's go really fast. So this was news that actually this made local or national headlines. That I found out was kind of local news, and this was during a protest in Thousand Oaks, so here in Ventura County.
Oh yeah.
So this was pro-Palestinians on one side, pro-Israelis on the other side, and there's been a protest there every single weekend since the war basically began. But this last weekend, unfortunately, there was a casualty, and there was a 69-year-old man, Israeli supporter, who got in an altercation with at least one pro-Palestinian supporter. The one that we have on record is a 50-year-old, and we know that he ended up falling. Apparently, he was pushed. That remains to be concluded. But he did fall on his back and ended up getting taken to the emergency room and ended up, unfortunately, passing away overnight.
Which is terrible. It sounds like there was a rumor that he was hit in the head with a megaphone.
Yes.
And then that's when he fell backwards. And it wasn't the megaphone strike. It was the fall, which does happen with age. I mean, it happens to anybody, but like your reflex is going to be just that millisecond slower where your elbows aren't going out to at least break your fall. And it's your head.
Yep.
So it's so terrible. It goes back to that hotbed of tensions that happen throughout the world when there's war, especially religious and racial based war, because that just spreads everywhere. It makes everybody upset because nobody wants to see children and families dying. It does seem like I will say the IDF's incursion appears to be moving very fast. They're already deep in Gaza at this point. They are. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if within the next week they are 100% covered. I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe that's a little like, I don't want to say optimistic, but it sounds like I'm cheering for one side. But what I do hope for is that it does come to a quick end. Do you have a map of the coverages?
I have a map right now of exactly where, I throw this on the screen. This is IDF's advancement. So they've cut off this middle section right here. This is Gaza City, and Jabalia is up here. There's altercations up here.
Is blue them?
Blue is IDF.
Yeah, so I think they've moved in now. When was this updated?
This was 24 hours ago.
Okay, great. Yeah, so my point of this is what they didn't start actually moving in until what? A week ago. So this is a week's worth of progress already, and now you just squeeze from all sides. This is moving fast, which is good because you don't want it to last forever like the Russia-Ukraine situation. You need this done because Israel can't be an occupying force here. That's never going to work. You can't take the land. You create a bigger buffer zone. Finish your mission, eliminate Hamas, make a deal, release the hostages, whatever needs to be done, establish a temporary government, let the people hold elections again, build a bigger buffer zone in the meantime, GTFO, reload the Iron Dome, and hope this doesn't happen ever again.
The push that's been happening is over here, the coastal push. This is the really big one.
Oh, show me. That's on the map here?
Yeah. This push.
Yeah.
This is the new one, the northern side of Gaza here, coming from the ocean.
Yep.
And then the other one is they have this evacuation corridor set up. Although worth noting, it's kind of on and off, like when they're allowed to use this evacuation corridor. But that's there. Regarding the Israeli guy, the medical examiners did confirm that it was the blunt force on the back of the head that did end up. However, they also did mention that there seemed to be injuries on his face that coincided with the belief that he was hit with a megaphone. Again, it's not confirmed. And because there's no videos of this event, usually there's social media videos of this kind of
This
stuff
was
all
a
the time.
smaller thing,
This is a
though.
smaller thing. And then when police showed up and they were asking for what happened, everyone gave completely different stories as to what happened. So it's worth noting that, don't jump to
Conflicting
conclusions on
stories.
this. Yes, the conflicting stories. Don't jump to conclusions. We're just kind of reporting it as it is.
That makes law enforcement's job very difficult too. To when you get there and it's like, oh well, the old guy. We don't know this, but maybe the person who died. Well, he was fighting back and he was making threatening motions or whatever. The guy pushed him with the megaphone. We have no idea. It's all speculation. But the point is, it wouldn't have happened if there wasn't a war in Gaza.
The last thing I want to mention is on Tuesday afternoon, 20 rockets were fired from Lebanon over to the Israeli border, and so IDF struck back, and I actually have some video of that too. They confirmed that fighter jets struck Hezbollah, the sites in southern Lebanon, and I'm just going to play this while I talk. This is not Gaza. This is Lebanon.
Mm-hmm. These are the strikes back.
These are the strikes back.
Wow.
And so there was a senior advisor to Joe Biden yesterday or the day before for talks with Lebanese leaders to try to prevent further escalation at the border. But this is where we're at right now on the north side. It's not looking good there either.
Yeah, I really do wish they would come to a ceasefire as soon as possible. Let's just release the hostages. Let's ceasefire and end this, because again, every day, every time you see one of those bombs, it's likely dozens of people. I think we calculated the average. It was 15 people on average for every strike die in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip, which is just horrible. And given that 50% roughly are children, it's so sad. I mean, I have two little twins at home. Twin girls. It breaks my heart to think that, and then of course Max and Jack, to think that innocent children are victims of this. It's so disgusting. So it needs to end. Okay, so let's wrap up so we can go to the debate. There will be a redirect at the end of this video to the Republican debate, so you're welcome to join me in that live stream. I'll be live in about 19 minutes in the studio. So with that said, let's go ahead and read this. Even though I'm a licensed financial advisor, licensed real estate broker, and becoming a stockbroker, this video is neither personalized financial or real estate advice for you. Make sure to check out the new Burst Pro courses at meetkevin.com. Prices go up Friday evening. It is also not tax, legal, or otherwise personal advice tailored to you. The video provides generalized perspective, information, and commentary. None of the content we talked about shall be deemed reasonably sufficient information for the purpose of evaluating a security or investment decision. I also personally operate an ETF that does hold long positions in some of the securities we've mentioned. However, I have no personal relationship to any of the issuers, nor am I presently acting as a market maker. Thanks so much. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers.